Welcome to Courage in Crisis, conversations of health, faith, and wellness. It is our pleasure to bring you this program as together we reflect on the goodness of God. Together we continue to think about who God is and how God is leading us through this particular crisis. And so today we are talking about disaster preparedness. Now, some persons will say we are already in a disaster. What further preparedness do we need? However, for those of us who live in the Caribbean region, we know that once June comes along, we have the hurricane season. And we're adding the hurricane season onto the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. So we want our members, we want persons listening to this to be adequately prepared, to know what to do. Because the reality is, the more we know and the better prepared we are, the better we're able to go through the crisis and to really make a positive difference. Today we have someone who has some expertise in the area of disaster management. And we have today with us the Reverend Dr. Dion Christopher. And I don't think I introduced myself. Of course, I am Reverend Algernon Lewis. So, Dr. Christopher, welcome to Courage in Crisis.
Thank you, my brother. It's a great pleasure to be here. Good to see you and the wisdom that's growing with you.
we know what we mean by that.
Yes.
Well, it is good to see you as well, Brother Dion, and it's good to have you on this program. And this program, we normally begin by simply asking you, how are you doing? And I'm referring to, of course, how are you doing in relation to the COVID-19 crisis and the new protocols and the adjustments and how life has become different in such a short space of time? How are you doing?
Well, as you know, I basically just took up a new pastorate. I got to Miami, had an installation service, had the communion Sunday, the following Sunday, and then we were on lockdown. That was very, very, very different.
Disorienting.
Yes. And so, you know, it's been a challenge. It has been a great challenge, just even to do ministry. But from a personal perspective, it has been an opportunity that I think I have taken to reflect, to just to spend time with God. So, you know, where some people might be at home getting bored, I have been reading, experimenting with online stuff and things like that. So, yeah, I've been doing everything within my power to stay safe and to educate as much as possible, especially the members of the congregation to know, here are the things we need to do so that we can stay safe. And you know, as much as possible, I can encourage anyone, you know, if some people are afraid to wear the mask, don't want to wear the mask or whatever else, I have masks of all types, conditions, shapes, and formats. Every time I go online and I see a mask, I order it, because we need to be in this for the long haul. This is not something that's going to go away right now. Even the way we do stuff as Moravians has to change. Having up to this morning, I had a discussion with my namesake, Reverend Elroy Christopher, about the way how we even do communion as the Moravian Church and how stuff like that has changed. So basically speaking, I'm coping, taking it one day at a time, and trying my endeavor best to educate and teach and inform people. These are things we have to do in this season, because I also believe COVID is for a season.
Interesting perspective. I like the fact that you use the word opportunity. Not many people see opportunity in a crisis. And I think that is one of the things we need to focus on, that this is an opportunity that has been gifted to us, if you wish, strange words, but provided for us by God. And it challenges everything that we have to do, which means that God may be saying to us that we need to shift some ways that we are doing things.
Yep.
But Brother Dan, I could not help but really hear an undertone in your conversation about, well, you're looking for the long haul and you're ordering masks, and it's like you're speaking from a perspective of preparedness and meeting the challenge head on. And somebody may be watching this program and thinking, but who is he? As far as I know, he's a preacher. What is this disaster preparedness? So could you please help persons understand why you have what should I say, expertise in this? Why are you a factor in this conversation?
Okay, so I have, I guess for a while now, been interested in emergency management. However, I've served the last 10 years as the senior Army chaplain, the state chaplain for the Virgin Islands Army National Guard. And as the chaplain, as the military chaplain, there's certain roles that we have to play, and we function at the highest level. And so because of that, I have had to do training in emergency management, disaster management, disaster care. I've had to do the FEMA training, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency training. I've had to do the military training, all of that having to do with emergency management. And then I guess it was a good thing that I'd done all of the training, because then came Irma and Maria and hit the Virgin Islands. So then I was able not just to have the knowledge from going to a school or doing a seminar or a workshop, but I was then also able to have the knowledge from firsthand, seeing the magnitude of Irma and Maria and how it destroyed the Virgin Islands. And I was basically forced to put all of the stuff that you learned into practice. And so I've continued over the years since then to enhance that, that knowledge and that information that I have. And I've tried to, I guess, impart as much of that as possible to the church as well. So my background, is the information that I have is basically mainly from my military experience.
Right. So you have training and you have experience. So there are things that you learned in books and there are things that you learned on the field. I remember seeing pictures of you in your military regalia with trees dropping around you and all of that sort of thing when you were was one of the recent hurricanes. So you've been doing this. Now, Brother Dion, if you can go straight into just in terms of disaster preparedness, of course, persons are, have to be preparing for the disaster. We've seen some tropical storms coming around, but before tropical storms come, what should we be doing? We know hurricane season is coming June. What should we be doing in preparation, not just for the storm that is approaching, but for hurricane season, so that we're in a place of preparedness?
Well, but again, the first thing is this. I'd want to say this, and I'm not a prophet of gloom and doom, but I think we need to be very conscious and aware that all our different weather authorities are basically predicting this to be a very, very active season. We already have more named storms at this point than we have ever had. So when you put all that together, we have to stop and recognize we can't wait until the storm gets here. And so in emergency management, we basically said there are 5 stages in emergency management. The first one is what we call mitigation, which is where we are now. Actually, we should have been here before June 1. Mitigation is what we do before a disaster strikes. And what we do is that all of the things that we need to do, if we need to do stuff with our homes, we need to do prepare for different individuals, and so all of that stuff we do prior to. You cannot wait till the hurricane season comes to begin to prepare, and that is, I think, a fundamental problem that we have, and that's why when the hurricane, once they say a hurricane is coming, you find that supermarkets are crowded, overcrowded, and that kind of stuff, and are empty. And in the Caribbean, we have had so many hurricanes and storms over the years that we should not be doing that. We by now, we should know I don't remember what, there's a poem that we used to say growing up about June come and something. So we know that once June come, hurricane season is here. So why do we wait till July and August when we're told hurricane is coming to go and buy what we need to buy? So we have to start with now, the mitigation process. Then, the preparedness, which is phase 2, is basically say a disaster is imminent. It is here. What that is when you should be in the last minute thing, and then there's the response, which is the third phase. The response is what you do while it is going on and what you do immediately after. The response is what you do immediately after. And then you have the relief, which is where you begin to say, okay, assess your needs, and these are the things that we will need so we can function at least in the immediate aftermath. And then you have the long-term, let's rebuild and let's start our lives over. If you have a house roof that's gone, that's when you start to do all that kind of stuff. But those are the 5 stages. And I think where we are right now, which is crucial, is in the mitigation stage. We have to prepare. Prepare. I was a Boy Scout, and as a Boy Scout growing up, be prepared is the motto. Be prepared has to be the motto for hurricanes and for any disaster. We just have to make sure that we are ready for whatever. In category 1, category 2, it doesn't matter. Just be prepared.
So what do you say to the person who said, oh, this category 1 storms, now call me when it's category 3 or category 5, that sort of thing? What do you say to that person?
A storm is a storm is a storm. A tropical storm may not bring the winds, but it can bring the rain. And so we know with rain, and a lot of rain comes flash floods and stuff like that. So I would never recommend to everyone to base your preparedness on the level or the category of the storm. Base your preparedness on simply being prepared. Prepare for the worst. That way, if that doesn't come, then you're still prepared. That'll be my response to that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, moving right along then. So, okay, let's just say that the meteorologist announces this week we look at something happening and we are going to be getting a storm, or for that matter, the storm is upon us. What should happen during the storm? Like when, how do I prepare exactly? That's if we can go to the stage 2 was preparedness, last minute things. What are some of the last minute things that we need to be doing?
Well, some of the last minute things that we need to do is, stuff like sandbagging, if you have that facility, because the water is going to be a reality. No matter, once the storm is strong enough, water is going to be a reality. The rain will be through, water comes through holes in your house that you didn't know exist. And so sandbagging is key, but also putting away documents. People take that for granted. I'm going to say no, for example, we're not doing much traveling right now, for example, because of COVID. I would want to suggest now, right now, before any hurricane is mentioned or storm is mentioned, you should put your documents, your important documents, into Ziploc bags and stuff like that. You need to have what we call a hurricane preparedness kit, and that need to be ready before the hurricane. Hurricane preparedness, there's several things that go into a hurricane preparedness kit, the basic necessities that you would need, because power is going to go. We all know that. In Trinidad, the power is going to go. And in Antigua, the power is going to go. In the Virgin Islands, the power is going to go. Barbados. I don't know all of the names of all of the
companies.
Okay, I think Trinidad is TNTech.
Right.
I don't know what Barbados is. I think Antigua is APUA.
Right. Think it's Skellect.
And exactly. And in Virgin Islands as well. So, we know that these companies are either going to shut down before the storm, or as soon as the quickest wind that blows, they're going to shut down. So we should not be waiting until that happens, for example, to get flashlights. and to get batteries, and to get, you know, to get portable stuff, that, you know, radios and things like that, so we can keep in touch and know what's going on. In your hurricane kit, you should have water. Water gets contaminated, and we know if you normally get water from the government, that's going to go as well. So you should have a certain amount of water. I think it says 10 gallons per person. I don't remember what the exact amount is. There's a pretty large amount. We should have water, because that's a basic necessity. You should have canned goods, canned food, and stuff like that, so that you are prepared, because when the storm hits, you will not have the opportunity to go and get the basic supplies. After Irma and Maria, I was deployed to St. Thomas. And while I was on St. Thomas, I saw lines. Some of the lines were miles long of people trying to get food, water, the basic things of life. And it's sad, because you really should have those things already. Mm-hmm. And use the time prior to. And if you notice, my emphasis is on preparedness, because when the storm hits, as I say, you can duck and cover, but when the storm hits and you're not prepared, then you're in for, as we say, a world of hurt. So be prepared. Go ahead.
Is there a way to store some of that stuff? Because I'm thinking that if okay, let's just say a family of 4, 10 gallons per person, let's say for 2 or 3 days. We're talking from my house, it would be 4 10-gallon bottles or 5 10-gallon bottles around there. If the roof goes, what happens to that water? How do we secure that water to make sure that when everything is blowing around, we are left with at least some basic necessities?
So the most I can tell you is to put it in a secure place. If you have a basement or a cellar or something like that, that'll be a good place to store something like that. If the roof itself is not secure, or if you feel like you may lose your roof. And I guess either way, that would be a secure place to place stuff like water and supplies. Where you keep your supplies should be somewhere that you know, if in a worst case scenario, that you would have access to it still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So each family will have to determine, like make a determined decision. This is where we're putting this so that we can find it. Maybe in a kitchen cabinet or something like that. That's, yeah. Okay.
And it is also important, I'm glad you mentioned each family member. It's also important that each family member knows where it is. Just in case, you know, they are the one that is left, you know, God forbid, but they're the one that is left. They would not even know where to turn to find stuff.
Mm.
You know?
So now, you know, families are complicated, and I say that in a good way. Sometimes you have a senior granny who is 80, 90 years old, or grandfather, or you have a diabetic, or you have a child that may be someone who may be differently able, not be able to move around, or mentally challenged, or one of those things. How do we go about preparing for persons like that?
So I think now, and if I may speak specifically for the Virgin Islands, because of what they just went through in 2017, one of the things we found after the storm is that a lot of the elderly and children were suffering from severe cases of PTSD. As a matter of fact, I'd venture to say that it probably was almost everyone, but mainly children and elderly. So what you had is that after Irma and Maria, and you had even a thunder strike, persons would scream, they would cry, they would, you know, they would react. And so we find that we've had to do a sort of different care for persons who've been through stuff like that. And I'm mentioning that because when you talk about preparing the children and your seniors and so on and whatnot, for especially the disabled, for a storm. Let me start with the children. With the children, the key thing with children is to keep them calm. Because you're talking about two different things. One, some will be excited about a storm coming and excited because it's something new, and others will be scared because they're afraid of thunder, they're afraid of lightning, they're afraid of the rain, whatever the case is. And so keeping them calm, either from being hyper, as we say, or from being scared, keeping them calm would be key. And talking to them about your personal individual emergency measures. If something is to happen and mommy and daddy get hurt, here's what you do. Here is where you go. Here's what you do, kind of stuff. Okay. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. That is good. Because we need families to make sure that they are properly prepared. All right. What do you say to somebody who is building a house? Talk about resilience. What advice are you giving to persons? There's somebody down the road, they're knocking up something, what do you say?
You mentioned a word there. I want to touch on that first, and then I'm going to answer your question. You mentioned the word resilience.
Resilience.
One of the things that we are fortunate in the Caribbean region for is that we're resilient people. We're resilient because we grow up resilient. Even our children today, you may say, well, they're not as resilient as you and I might have grown up, but they are resilient. As simple as this. Go back to our power companies. Everybody knows every now and again, the power companies take off the power. And sometimes it's off for an inordinate amount of time. So when ultimately power goes because of a storm, we can handle that. And we have coping mechanisms to deal with that. But in terms of housing, I'm gonna answer you very bluntly. In this day and age, and with all the storms we've had in recent times, and people are not building with utilizing the proper building codes, like hurricane straps and so forth, then you're simply doing that, building your house on the sand kind of thing. Because the reality is, hurricanes are increasing, the climate conditions are getting worse, and so people just have to be prepared. And if you're building now, you have to, well, I can't say you have to, you ought to build with the proper hurricane building material and building codes.
Okay, good. During the storm is passing. Any advice there you'd want to suggest?
If it gets bad, people always, the experts tell you, because hurricanes normally turn out tornadoes. And so people normally, you find the strongest location in your house and hunker down there until the storm passes. That's the best advice I can give anyone. Find the strongest location in your house. Some people say it's a bathroom because you have the tub, if you have a tub and that kind of stuff, and because it's reinforced and all that kind of stuff. You have to figure out what is the strongest location in your house and take that as where you will hunker down through the storm. And pray. Let's not leave that out of the equation.
Leave that out.
Pray for God's protection and pray that God will protect your house and your family and all in all. Yeah, that's a good
segue, Brother Dion, for me to then ask you, what do you say to church? You and I, both church people, your church leaders. What do you say to us in terms of how do we manage crises of this nature? What should the church be doing?
So I'll be honest with you, Brother Algernon, that question is a question that will take at least an hour to answer.
Well, you have only a few minutes.
I know, I'm aware of that. But I think my immediate response to that would be every single church long before we begin to talk about hurricanes, should have an emergency management plan in place. And what does that involve? That involves being prepared for what may happen on a Sunday morning. Someone gets a heart attack on a Sunday morning. How prepared are you as a church, as a congregation? And if you start with that and you build up your resources from that basic every Sunday morning position, then when it comes to where you have a disaster, you will already have some of the basic things in place. And so that'll be my immediate answer, Brother Algernon, that we need to start, churches need to start and put in place an emergency management plan, not a disaster plan, because a disaster plan is for the after. You need to have an emergency management plan in place. And if you put an emergency management plan in place, you'll find all the things that you need to have in place will already be in place. Because one of the things, one of the things the Caribbean region is beginning to come face to face with right now is the reality of tsunamis. And the fact that we are, God forbid, but we're long overdue for a major one. And how do you prepare for that? That is what you do on a daily basis. Put the things in place so that if that does happen, then it's there. The Caribbean is also shying away from, I think we're immune from church shootings, for example. We need to prepare for stuff like that and not wait till it happens to us. Let's not be the ostrich and bury our heads in the sand, but be prepared for any eventuality. So from the church perspective, that would be what I would say. And, the other thing will be the boards need to make sure you have all the stuff to, protect the equipment and the church and all that kind of stuff in the meantime.
And make sure you have funds attached to your disaster management.
Oh, yes. Put aside money for everything except for that. And then when that happens, we're scrambling to find the basic funding to do the basic stuff. Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Brother Dion, for sharing and for edifying us in this area. And I hope that as persons were listening, that they heard things that they can do and don't have to feel like completely lost when there's a storm coming. The storm is going to come, we just don't know when, but we're preparing ourselves. Again, I've been talking to the Reverend Dr. Dion Christopher. He's a pastor at the Prince of Peace Moravian Church in Miami Gardens, Miami, and he's also a disaster preparedness specialist. And he was sharing with us today on preparing for disasters. I am your host for today, Reverend Algernon Lewis, and it was good to have you. Every blessing to you as we continue to prepare for the disaster and as we continue to journey through this pandemic, which is a disaster by itself. God blessings to you all.
Blessings to you, my brother.